Welcome to Trying to Conceive with Dr. Sasha Hakman, where we break down the science of fertility, share real patient stories, and explore the latest innovations in reproductive medicine. My name is Dr. Sasha Hakman, and I'm a double board certified OBGYN and reproductive endocrinologist and infertility specialist. I practice at HRC Fertility in Beverly Hills, but this podcast is an independent project created and hosted by me separate from my clinical work. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you want exclusive updates and resources, be sure to sign up for my newsletter. Just click the link in the episode description. All right, so today we have a really exciting topic. I'm going to be talking about the game-changing model that has redefined egg donation with fertility preservation. And if you're listening and you're wondering, what does egg donation have to do with egg freezing? Joining me today is the co-founder and CEO of a company called Cofertility. It is a human-first fertility ecosystem that helps women freeze their eggs for free when donating half, making egg donation less transactional and egg freezing more accessible. Named one of the Fast Company's 2023 Most Creative People in Business and to Inc.'s 2025 Female Founders 500 list, as well as featured in top press outlets like Vogue, Forbes, Entrepreneur, Marie Claire, Women's Health, and many more. Lauren is recognized for her innovative approach to increasing accessibility and driving systemic change in healthcare. You've done quite a bit here. And from what I know, you started off as an early Uber employee. You founded Uber Health, leveraging Uber's vast driver network to improve healthcare outcomes through patient transportation and healthcare delivery. And under Lauren's leadership, the business helped millions of patients access the care they needed. So quite a bit. You are so accomplished. You've received your own diagnosis leading to your own personal fertility journey, which sort of, I guess, brought you here.
Yeah.
So let's start with that.
Yeah,
Let's start by talking about what Cofertility is and what inspired you to start this company.
Well, first, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining me.
I love that you're doing this. I think that,
thank you.
You are such a amazing resource for so many people, and this is just like a way for people to get more of that from you. And so I'm so excited for it.
I appreciate that.
And yeah, I mean, Cofertility, we're doing things differently.
Yeah.
And it's time for change in this space. And that's what it's about. So at our core, you said it, we enable women to freeze their eggs for free when they donate half of the eggs retrieved to intended parents that can't otherwise conceive. So that could be someone who's struggling with fertility challenges, same-sex male couples, cancer survivors, and more, right? There's so many reasons someone might need an egg donor.
Right.
But on the other side, really, we're making egg freezing more accessible, right? It's this incredible science that exists, and yet it's just so out of reach for most women who would benefit from it the most.
Totally.
It is, like we always say, the best time to freeze your eggs is when you can least afford it and no one is talking to you about it. And so we're here to change that. And so my
totally the case.
Personal journey certainly helped shape where this all came from. You said I was at Uber. I was building Uber Health. I felt so strongly about helping people access care and was just by surprise diagnosed with an incredibly rare disease. So I woke up one morning with a pain in my side. It felt like someone had kicked me. I was like, no one kicked me. Like, what is this? And I remember I had just started dating my now husband. And I was like, there's something weird about this. Like, something is not right. And he was like, oh, typical. I'm sure you're fine. Was not fine. And so the pain didn't go away after a few days. Went to the doctor. Had a bunch of imaging done.
I was going to say, did you have any other symptoms other than the pain?
Not a single one.
Of course, the doctor was trying to think of the differentials.
So thankfully, it was on the side that your appendix is on. And so they ordered an ultrasound. The ultrasound was inconclusive. So they were like, we're going to get you a CT scan today. And I was like, well, that's a little scary. And then within a week, within like 3 days of that, actually, I had a diagnostic surgery. They basically thought I had horrible ovarian cancer because that's what it looked like on the CT.
God.
Turned out I have something called, it's actually debated in the literature. There's two different names for it. One is benign multicystic peritoneal mesothelioma, and others just call it multicystic peritoneal mesothelioma because it's like debated whether or not it's low-grade cancer or not. But either way, these cystic masses form and can cut off the functioning of your organs. And I guess they had moved to cause the pain that I had.
Wow.
And so it was terrifying.
No kidding.
Yeah. And thankfully, wasn't that really aggressive, malignant form of cancer, but it was very daunting because there was very little information about it.
And I'm sure you went down the Google rabbit hole.
So talk about a rabbit hole. I read every paper ever published on this disease.
Wow.
I made a spreadsheet of every author who had ever written about it, figured out who was still practicing, who was in the US, and made appointments to either go see them or to have video consults with them.
That's brilliant.
Now, ChatGPT could do a lot of that for you, right? If
Yes,
only
it
that
can.
existed in
I know.
2017. What a gift, ChatGPT. But
It really is.
Totally.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough that there was someone there that day of my surgery who had seen this disease once before, like a pathologist who was like, I saw this once 30 years ago. He was able to identify it. Other people, it takes years and years for them to get this diagnosis. I was so lucky.
Wow.
But for me, basically what these doctors all agreed on was that I would have to have a number of surgeries to remove the disease and that I would very likely lose my ovaries, just given the placement of
So
it.
scary.
Yes. And so I am a total planner. That's an understatement.
Love that.
And yeah, I self-aware. And so I went to go see a fertility doctor who specializes in cancers and rare diseases, and Dr. Mitch Rosen, UCSF.
Yeah.
And he was like, whoa, this is, I've never seen this before. Let's learn about it. Let's figure it out. And he was not into the idea of freezing my eggs before this number of surgeries just because of how rare this disease was. He was like, I don't really want to inject your abdomen with hormones right now if we don't know what's happening.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, but if I lose my ovaries, how will I be a mom? Mm-hmm. And I should have been how can I live with this disease? But I just
that was the
singular
first thought.
focus. Yeah.
Wow.
So much so that actually when they thought it was ovarian cancer, I wasn't quite computing that and still was will I be a mom someday? And the doctor that day, she said, maybe you'll be a unicorn.
Wow.
Yeah. And so saw Mitch Rosen. He said, egg donation might be your best bet someday if you lose your ovaries. I was like, what? And so I started to learn everything there was about egg donation. And I couldn't believe what I saw. I could not believe that these donors are paid tens of thousands of dollars to donate their eggs and that the cash compensation goes up and up and up depending on how specific you are with what you're looking for.
Yes.
To me, I was like, what? They're surge pricing for egg donors, right?
Yes.
My 8 years at Uber, right? I'm just what's happening? Yeah. How is that allowed, right? That plus this idea that these donors are billed as anonymous. It's what? Ancestry.com, 23andMe, all these DNA tests exist. No donation can be anonymous. Why are we claiming that they can be? That is bullshit. And so I wanted nothing to do with it. I was really off put by it.
So it wasn't even the idea of not having your own genetic material. It was the process that was off-putting.
I definitely went, and thankfully I was in therapy at the time. To go through, I had an amazing therapist, and then this diagnosis happened. And then we talked so much at length about what it would mean to wake up from this surgery with no ovaries. And we talked about what we called it grieving genetics, right? Because I, being a planner, needed to feel prepared for what that might look and feel like.
Right.
And part of preparation for me is having a plan. And so that's where I was like, okay.
Right. Makes sense.
If I lose my ovaries, what's my plan? And so that's how I got to the next and to the next and to the next. I'm very much a one foot in front of the other kind of person. Focused on the outcome.
Which is probably what led you to here.
Seriously. But yeah, so I was simultaneously, I think, grieving my genetics and pursuing the potential options. My sister, who is amazing and lives right near here, actually, she had 2 beautiful kids and said to me, Lauren, I would give my left arm if it meant you could be a mother someday. I'm going to freeze my eggs.
God, that makes me want to cry. Yeah, that's so
I'm
sweet.
I'm going to freeze my eggs and donate them to you.
Wow.
And that's what she did. And so she did that. She was 34. She donated her eggs. And I went through another 2 major surgeries after that, knowing that if I woke up with no ovaries, I had those eggs waiting for me. And long story short, I ended up not losing my ovaries.
Wow.
And I remember the doctor had said, come try to get, when you're ready, try to conceive. And if you're not pregnant after 6 months unassisted, like we'll talk about using your sister's eggs, because we didn't know what was possible with this disease.
Right.
And of course, being a planner, I had an appointment for after that 6th month of,
of course
trying,
you did.
ready to see my frozen. And sure enough, I had to call and cancel that appointment because I conceived my oldest unassisted without using my sister's eggs.
Wow.
And so after I did get to live my life, though, with the gift of frozen eggs, right? Like I got to make decisions about my career without the pressure of my biological clock. I got to make decisions about my relationship without the pressure of my biological clock. And so when I gave birth to Eden, my oldest, I remember late night breastfeeding, with a newborn, thinking it's time to leave Uber and I have to build something in this space. And so now I wear a ring right here that has a unicorn on it because I am a unicorn. It's
Love
so
that.
crazy.
Yes.
And I'm so lucky. And I now also went on to have a second child, this time very assisted with IVF, conceived using my own egg, the one embryo we got, the total lucky. But I knew I needed to build something in this space. And so my co-founder, Hallie Tecco, is an amazing innovator, investor, entrepreneur in women's health. And it took her 5 years to have her son. And we just both felt like something better needs to exist, right? Third-party reproduction is growing and needs to evolve. Mm-hmm. The way that we did things before isn't going to cut it in the long run for what's needed in this space, right? We have to think about what it means to be donor conceived and evolve this space. And we have to think about supporting all kinds of families, no matter what their path is. And so
absolutely,
that's what brings us here.
That is an incredible story. Very powerful. So I love your why. And it's interesting from the physician perspective. I've really never thought about it when it comes to egg donors getting compensated as that's a weird situation. Because I guess I always think of it from the perspective, okay, your body has to go through so much with the stimulation and all that. But I really do hear that perspective. Yeah. And it's a really interesting way to look at it because it is very transactional right now.
What's really interesting about it is that cash compensation is certainly off-putting for a lot of intended parents, right? It feels transactional. What we found, and there was a study that came out from Harvard Med School in 2021 that said a majority of donor-conceived people feel disturbed by the fact that cash was exchanged for their genetics. So growing up that way, knowing that your parents paid cash to a donor, feels icky. And then what we realized over the last couple of years doing this is that many women actually feel really off-put by the idea of getting paid cash to donate their eggs.
Really?
Yes. And so I'm not saying all of them, right?
Yeah,
There's absolutely some people who feel, hey, this is my time, this is my energy, and I should be compensated cash, and I want to do whatever I want to do with that cash. And to that, I say, awesome. That's great for you, and you should do it. And that works for some people. But what we found is that there are so many women who are like, I feel funny about that. I feel like I'm getting paid to give up some part of my body. It's am I selling my body? There's
feels
something
less altruistic.
Yes. And so what we found is that we're actually not competing for donors with the other egg donation companies out there. We have a totally different group of people who's participating in this. For us, we're growing the pie of women that are interested in egg donation because we're doing it so differently.
Yeah.
And so the way that we show up in the world is a way that's like, hey, here is a win-win for you. Like, do something for yourself and someone else at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's what it is.
Absolutely.
It's just another option.
Yeah. I mean, this whole concept is just so brilliant. When you really say it out loud, it feels obvious, but
Yeah.
really, up until this point, nobody else thought of it.
I mean, no, and that's actually not true. So egg sharing as a concept is done in small pockets actually all over the world. So it's done in the UK at some clinics. It's done, I think, in Australia at some clinics. And then in the US, some clinics do it on a very local level. And I think that's why it's never taken off, which is like intended parents are looking for a donor that's as unique as they are, right? And so that could be their heritage. It could be their interests, their hobbies, like any number of things could draw them to a donor. And when you're forced to look at the donors in a specific radius of your clinic, it makes it like next to impossible to like find that in a way that actually like is a sustainable large scale business. And so we're the first to really do it at scale and to do it venture backed and to do it in a way that like has the reach for lack of a better term, for the supply to meet the demand, right? Like for that to work at scale.
So, for instance, to give a more specific example, and I use this one because I'm Egyptian, and I've had Middle Eastern patients in the past need an egg donor, and they really, really struggle with the fact that they can't find a Middle Eastern egg donor.
Come to Cofertility.
And so, that's really good to know. So you have like sort of a wide spectrum.
Like the craziest, like, I'll give you an example. We just saw each other at a fertility conference recently. And a physician came up to me and she's like, I know there's no chance of this, but I just have to ask. She was like, I have a same-sex male couple. One of them is Black and the other is Polish. Is there like any world where you have a donor that has both of those backgrounds? And I was like, hold on a second. I pulled out my laptop and I pull up our platform and we had 2. And she like could not believe it. Right?
Wow.
Like, to me, and I think something that we've realized is that like third-party reproduction, right? When you need the help of a third party to have a baby, it is straight up like never anybody's first choice, right? Like I acknowledge that. I say to intended parents, look, I know you don't want to meet me. I know you're not excited about this conversation, but let me help you feel like you're not settling. That's
I love that.
Right? Like let me at least help you try to find something that like feels in alignment with how you want to grow your family.
As in terms of the characteristics and the ethnicity of the donor.
And the ethics of the like exchange, of it all. Right? Like we let them meet the donor if they want to as part of the process too. It doesn't have to be this like black box. You can get to know her. And the donor gets to know the intended parents. She can actually say, this match doesn't feel right for me.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, like, why shouldn't she get a say where her eggs go? You know?
Can you walk me through the process for a patient who is now considering an egg donor and they want to use Cofertility based on what they've heard here? How does it work with you guys from sort of start to finish?
Totally. So if you're an intended parent, you will either hear about us from your doctor or your clinic, or you'll find us online. And you create an account on our platform. It is free to create an account. That's so important to me. I hate this idea that we would like gatekeep information about a donor. Like you don't have to pay to see the details. But you share information with us about what you're looking for in a donor so that we can make recommendations and we can help you find your match. But essentially, when you create that profile or your account, you can view donor profiles. And so we have options for fresh donation and for frozen. And so the process varies depending on which of those 2 options you choose. But essentially you see profiles and you can sort those profiles by your preferences. So you could say, I'm looking for a donor who is an extrovert and who is really athletic and is Egyptian. And you will see options. Or I'm looking for a donor who has like musical abilities or like any number of things. We design the profiles with a fertility psychologist, like knowing what intended parents are typically looking to know. And so you can find what works for you. But if you're looking for fresh, either way, actually, when you match, you will hear from your member advocate on our team who is like assigned to manage your match. And also if you have trouble finding or if you're unsure about what you want to find in a donor or you don't know the process, you can book a call with my team. We have matchmakers, we call them.
Wow.
That's like my favorite part of the job, actually,
really,
is like helping find
very
the match.
unique, yes.
But essentially, once the match is made, you're assigned a member advocate, and then that's your like guru for the whole process, right? Like, are you shipping frozen eggs from like to your clinic, or are we having the cycle take place with your physician and you need the donor to travel? Any number of options, but we walk through it with you. So it's like taking some of that mental load off of the intended parent, which we both know is one of the worst parts of IVF, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. And so if somebody, let's just say a patient really wants to use fresh eggs, and they want that donor to cycle with their doctor, how does it work in terms of getting that donor to travel?
Yeah. So when we do our like donor application process, because it is quite extensive, as it should be, right?
Yes,
like we need to make sure
absolutely.
they meet all of the ASRM standards, all of the FDA standards, all of that. We also interview them. And so a part of the interview process that we have with each donor is really to understand what their preferences are for a match. And so that could be anything from, are you open to travel for a cycle? If so, can you commit to being there for X amount of days? Do you have any blackout dates? Things like that. But also, what type of relationship do you want to have with the intended parents? Do you want to get to know them? Or would you prefer to like maybe get an email update once a year? Like understanding those preferences up front so that we can make sure the intended parents we match them with have the same preferences, right? And so making sure that they're like in alignment from day one is super important. And so we may have, there's actually a huge portion of our donors are actually doctors and other, healthcare professionals. We know that women physicians are twice as likely to experience infertility as the general public.
Oh, yeah.
And they're very well aware of that. And I think they love the idea of being able to help someone else in this process. And so a lot of them really like Cofertility. I think some of the doctors are less able to travel than the members that we have that are like, I work remotely. Like, I would love to travel to LA for a cycle, right? So it really just depends. Depends on the donor. And that's part of why frozen makes so much sense for intended parents because, and for donors, because we're able to do the cycle on her timeline and ship those eggs as soon as an intended parent is ready.
Which we know from the data that it's just as equally effective.
Exactly.
So I'm never really concerned about using donor eggs, especially because the majority of donors are really young and presumably have no history of infertility, especially with that screening. And so most of the time you get almost all the eggs surviving the thaw. I always tell patients that if an egg does not survive the thaw, it's likely because that egg was never going to make it to an embryo anyways. And so it was just sort of an early screening process for that egg. But it's really great to have that option. And it's a very unique sort of path to parenthood when using egg donation, because now you actually get to have these conversations about how involved or how little involved somebody may or may not want to be. And it's aligned on both sides between the intended parent and the donor. Now, have you gotten feedback from the donors and to the intended parents about how this feels in comparison to using, one of the commonly known egg banks where it's basically looking through a catalog and selecting the eggs you want?
And I don't like to each their own, right? Like I think for some people that might work perfectly well, right? Or we have intended parents who maybe did that for child one and then they come to us for child two. And like, there's no wrong way to grow your family.
Absolutely.
Full stop. But I think what we found is there's like one quote that like will always stand out in my mind where we had an intended parent who sent me an email like the morning after she found Cofertility like late night, right? Like we always find that like people make their match like late at night. Like I think they're just like in it and they get really into the profiles and they go for it. And she sent me an email in the morning and it was like, finding a donor has been soul crushing until I found Cofertility.
Wow.
And that just like,
I'm sure that hit you.
Big time, right?
Yeah.
Like, because again, like why should any part of growing your family feel soul crushing, right? Like so much of growing your family is out of our control and we can't do anything about that. But the donor search process and finding a company that is doing it in a way that feels good isn't out of our control. And so like that to me is always like a North Star. Like, how do we just show up that way for people?
If you're trying to conceive, the supplements you take now really matter, especially when it comes to supporting your fertility from the inside out. As a double board certified OBGYN and reproductive specialist, I'm often asked what I personally recommend to patients preparing for pregnancy. My go-to is Bird & Bee's Female Fertility Power Prenatal plus CoQ10 pack. It's a preconception powerhouse, combining your prenatal, DHA, and powerful antioxidants into one easy daily pack. So no more juggling bottles. Here's what sets it apart is the clinical grade support for egg quality. You get 600 milligrams of CoQ10, shown in studies to significantly improve IVF outcomes and boost ovulation for those with PCOS. It also includes NAC, which helps reduce oxidative stress. And unlike most prenatals, it doesn't skip essentials like folic acid, the only form still recommended by the American Society of Reproductive Medicine, methylated folate, choline, preformed vitamin A, nutrients that play critical roles in fetal development and egg health. Plus, you're getting iron to improve blood count and vitamin E for improved blood flow. It's vegan, gluten-free, third-party tested, plus tested for heavy metals. It's also formulated by fertility doctors and naturopaths, so I know my patients are getting the support they need with none of the unnecessary fillers. Want to try Female Fertility Power Prenatal for yourself? Head to birdandbee.com/Sasha Hakman MD and use the code TTC Podcast at checkout to get 10% off your first order. That's TTC Podcast for 10% off, because your fertility deserves clinically backed support. Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, it's the more I'm even listening to it, the more I think, wow, if I was ever in that situation, that is probably the route that I would want to go.
Yeah.
Now, if we sort of switch it to the egg donor slash, woman looking to freeze her eggs, what is the type of demographic you're typically seeing? Because, and I'm going to ask a hard question here because, I've heard the statement from people that I know when I first spoke about them about Cofertility, where I said, oh my God, this is brilliant. Women who cannot afford to freeze their eggs and really desperately want their own child one day have the ability to also donate and then freeze their eggs for free with this company. It's brilliant. It will also improve access to fertility preservation, which the number one, I think, limiting factor, more than geography, more than schedule, it is financial, because it is a very expensive pursuit.
Totally.
But the thing I have heard is, well, don't you worry about the ethics of it all? Isn't it sort of coercing women to donating because they feel like that is their only option to freeze their eggs and have options for themselves in the future?
So
how do you address that?
Oh, I've heard it all.
I'm sure.
Keep in mind the people who ask that are totally down with cash compensation for egg donation.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And yet they don't ask, is that coercive? Right? Like, how is it not coercive to pay someone between $10,000 and $100,000 per cycle to donate eggs, who needs the money for God knows what, right? Like, and then they're pressured to do it at least 6 times.
Right.
And that's not coercive. So what I say to that is that the women who participate in our program are between the ages of 21 and 34 per ASRM and FDA standards. And they are not only participating with like complete informed consent and education on this process, they're going through a psych eval that confirms they are absolutely of sound mind and not coerced and understand what they're getting into. But they have multiple touch points throughout the process with our team to drop out of the process if they don't feel comfortable moving forward with donation. And so to them, I say, this is another choice. This is an option for her. And so if we believe in bodily autonomy, then we should believe that
we know not everyone does.
Not everyone does, right?
Unfortunately.
But the people that are asking you if this is coercive supposedly do, right?
Yeah.
And so I say to them, that's deeply paternalistic to question whether or not these women should get to make a decision about their own body and their own future.
I totally agree with that. Yes. Yeah. And I just love the way that you put it because, maybe my argument in that debate wasn't as eloquently said.
I've had time to think about it.
Yeah. No, but it is absolutely true because there's a lot of financial incentive to donate.
Yeah.
When you know that you're going to get tens of thousands of dollars, you're running sort of tight on the bills, you know that you're young, you're in good health, and that, who knows? I'm sure that there's also a number of people who somehow get away with not disclosing all aspects of their health history that may be difficult to ascertain in the screening process, which is always a little bit scary. And I know that sometimes, the intended parents might have a little bit of worry with that. But I do think that if you're doing it in a setting of not getting any financial compensation, you're probably a lot more likely to be as honest as possible because there is that altruistic, very strong
and
altruistic
compliant
side.
With the protocol.
Yes.
So what's interesting to me is that when you're doing it for a check, all you care about is like, I made it to the retrieval and I'm getting the check, right? Maybe not for everyone, but you're getting to the check. With this, these women are getting eggs from the same cycle, right?
Yes.
For their own future.
Yes.
And so they ask us, what should I be eating?
Yes.
What sort of supplements should I take? Is it okay to exercise? Like, how
They've
can
got skin in the game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How can I best take care of myself to optimize the outcome of this cycle?
Totally.
They're mutually incentivized.
Totally.
Right? And so it just like, to me, this is like, just obvious that it is like a more ethical option. And we were asked the same question. I did like a segment for CBS Morning Show and they had like an ethicist on the like giving his opinion and then like you should watch it.
Oh, I am so tempted to watch this.
Totally.
Opinion, not questions.
Yes.
Okay.
No, they gave his opinion and then they asked the question of two of our donors and one of them was like an OBGYN resident who was like this absolutely like, I couldn't afford to freeze my eggs on my own right now because I'm in like went to med school, did all of this stuff. And like, I love the idea that I get to help another family grow. And there was zero doubt in my mind that I wanted to do this. And then there was another woman who participated who like is like very successful in the like finance world. And she was like, I thought about it for a month and a half. And I thought really hard about it. And I just like ultimately decided that like what a gift and how grateful I felt that I got to give this to somebody else.
Wow.
And like she now like she matched with a single dad and he just had twins.
Oh,
and she's
so
like
lovely.
So moved by it, right? Like these are really smart women. Like why shouldn't they get to make these choices?
Oh, they absolutely should.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah. I also think that, from the patient perspective too, if you are really not feeling comfortable with somebody having your gametes,
don't do it.
You're typically not going to. Like there's usually no amount of money or freezing your own eggs that will motivate someone to do that.
100%. And we have so the model we've been talking about is what we call our split program. And we also very intentionally offer something called Keep. And that's for women who either don't qualify to donate because not everybody does, right? Like you can, of course, not everybody does clinically, right? Or if they aren't interested in donation, we still want to be able to help them freeze their eggs. And so our Keep program allows them to benefit from different partnerships that we've negotiated on behalf of our members because of the volume that we have, and allows them to take advantage of this like private online community that we've created for our members so that you don't have to go through egg freezing alone. And so by having that other option, like at any given time, if someone's like, you know what, this isn't feeling right for me, like, I met the intended parents, they're lovely, but it just like occurred to me that I don't want to donate. We're like, awesome. Thanks for telling us now. We're glad that like that's the choice that you made. And here's the Keep if this is interesting to you. And if it's not, like totally get it.
That's amazing. How does that work in comparison to, say, going to a fertility clinic and freezing your eggs there?
Totally. So like you still are freezing your eggs at a fertility clinic. Like we are not a clinic. So we are making introductions to clinics and physicians that we know and trust and like based on the relationships that our medical advisors have or that, you know, we're building out in these conferences and getting to know you guys. And then we make introductions to those clinics. And then we also help these women get into the private community that we have where they have access to our medical advisors, to our teams, to one another. And then they also get to take advantage of storage discounts, that we have, which I think are such an important part of this. So many people don't even realize how much of an expense storage can be. And so I feel
for sure.
really glad that we can help help do that. So it really depends on the geography because we have partnerships across the U.S., but we help people get into see the doctors that we really like. And
do you guys help with like financing aspects of it?
Yes, we do. And so again, it depends on the geography, but there's a lot of different things that we have in different cities that really help lessen the financial load too.
That's great.
Yeah.
What is the most unhinged thing that somebody has told you about this whole model?
Oh my gosh. So, I mean, I think the coercion thing, you nailed it. Like really, and I like that one really gets me.
I'm sure.
Because I like, it's like so obvious to me that it's not.
Right.
I think, you know, when I hear that donor, like intended parents maybe did a cycle with a donor and the compensation they paid for that donor maybe was, you know, $40,000 and they went for it because they felt like it was a donor that they wouldn't be able to find elsewhere. And then they realized they want to do a sibling journey. And now the agency is counseling the donor that, you know, she should get higher compensation. And these intended parents feel like they have no choice because they like started one way. And I just like, that frustrates me.
Of course.
And so my hope is like, let's be transparent and honest about what we can do and not do or guarantee or not guarantee and be really like thoughtful about what someone's goals are from day one. So like, I've heard some crazy compensation amounts that I'm just like, what is happening?
Yes.
And why is this okay?
Yes. And being in LA, I've definitely heard some really interesting stories, particularly if you're, you know, looking to get the eggs of someone who is well known, you know, in the media. And so the cost can certainly go up. And I definitely have my feelings about that. I do think it's sort of, in some cases, it could be preying on really vulnerable people. But I do think in other circumstances, especially if it's like a really exaggerated amount for a particular person, that those intended parents probably really just don't care and they have the means and the ability to do it their way. So, you know, it's one of those things like to each their own. So whatever really works for you to help build your family is great.
Zero judgment, right? Like everyone's path is unique.
Absolutely.
I just like, you know, I want everyone to feel like it's not taboo, right? I think like people always, I think it's interesting, especially in LA, right? Like we can't, we know when a celebrity uses a surrogate to have a baby now, right? Because of social media and paparazzi photos and things like that. They don't hide that they use a surrogate because
they can't get away with it.
They can't get away with it.
Right.
But nobody discloses when they use an egg donor because they can get away with it, right? Like you don't have to share that. It's not obvious. And so there was a podcast I was listening to recently. I think it was the Foster sisters who they said egg donation is Hollywood's best kept secret.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, right?
Yes.
And it's like, you know, how are these people having babies in their late 40s and 50s? Like that's how. It's just, we're not talking about it.
Right. And I really do believe in, you know, if that's not something you want to talk about and advertise, especially when you're already in the limelight, there's very little you get to keep to yourself. I think that's great.
Yeah.
The only frustrating piece of it as a fertility specialist is that I am seeing older women who are seeing other celebrities procreate in their late 40s, early 50s, thinking, you know what? This does happen. I can do it too.
Yes.
And then when they come in for a consultation at 51, and I'm talking about statistics of the likelihood of a spontaneous pregnancy or even success through IVF being far less than 1%, it's usually met with like heartbreak.
Right. And a shock.
And shock and disappointment. Right. And it kills me because I'm like,
I wish we could like normalize egg donation a little more.
Yes. And I do think for those who need an egg donor as well, it would make the process for many a lot easier to bear.
Yeah.
It's always a hard conversation as a fertility specialist when we get to the point of, okay, how many IVF cycles are we going to do before we throw in the towel? Or, you know, you're at this point where your ovarian reserve is almost next to nothing between that and your age. Like, how much money do you really want to spend on treatment that's a lot less successful?
Totally.
So it's always this big conversation of trying to break this whole stigma surrounding it, where I always have to remind families that this is one cell.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Totally.
And in fact, when you're even carrying the pregnancy, you are still genetically contributing to that baby.
Yes.
Something people don't realize, especially through epigenetics, what genes turn on, your environment, how it affects that child, you know, forever.
Yeah.
So there is a huge contribution. And once that child is born, you don't even think about the one cell that was used to create that child.
I could not agree more.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's interesting too, because it's something people feel like shame around or stigma, right? Like they don't talk about it even once they have a donor conceived child. And so maybe they tell their close friends or family. But since starting Cofertility, the amount of people in my life who have said, I've never told you this before, but my 2 kids are donor conceived.
Wow.
Or like my dental hygienist, when she was like in my mouth cleaning my teeth and was like, what do you do? And I told her, and she's like, one of my kids is donor conceived, but no one at work knows. And so she's like whispering to me.
Very common story.
And I think, you know, now that I do what I do, people of course like tell me everything, which I love.
Yes.
But like, it's wild to me that it feels like something that has to be stigmatized. And I hate that. Like, I just want people to like be able to embrace however their family was.
And I think we're still really far away from destigmatizing it. I think the more we talk about it, the better it is. I love that your brain, when you were going through what you were going through at the time, your brain automatically went into, okay, what are my options? And you sort of intellectualized it, it seems. And so, which is great in a sense, because then you just were very matter of fact of like, I mean, obviously I don't know all the emotions you were feeling.
I parallel pathed like getting through it and getting past it, honestly.
Yeah.
Which I think often in the work that I've been doing with intended parents, realize that that's so much of what going through a fertility story can like end up being, right? It's like, because time is of the essence, you are tasked with like mentally processing and dealing with something while moving the ball forward at the same time. And we don't like acknowledge how hard that is enough.
Yes.
Right? Like you have to do it all at the same time.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
What challenges have you faced in scaling this kind of a fertility company? Especially in terms of sort of bringing awareness to women who may consider doing the donation, the split program. So donating while freezing their eggs, especially because we're talking so much more now about egg freezing.
Yeah.
And even in my own practice, egg freezing has really skyrocketed more than ever before.
Yeah. It's so cool to see the interest from this like demo, basically, right? I think what's been wild is actually I think it was an HRC study that said 3 in 5 Gen Z women are concerned about their fertility. And that blew my mind, but also like was so consistent with what we see at Cofertility, which is like, and actually long before we even decided to start Cofertility, Hallie, my co-founder, like we made a survey just to like see like, is this something women would do? And so we had a bunch of influencers like post a type form, and 66% of women, it was like 1,000 women, 66% of them said yes or definitely yes to this idea of a split program that we do. And I thought the type form was broken. Like I couldn't believe it. Like I could not believe it. I kept refreshing it to be like, no, like, am I looking at this wrong? No.
Wow.
They were super into it. And I think what I attribute that to is like, for them, egg freezing is a no-brainer. Like they're super interested in it. And like you said, the number one thing that deters them is cost.
Totally.
But I think what's fascinating about Gen Z is that they know that the way that we make families today is more dynamic than it's ever been. So maybe they are part of the LGBTQ community and they know if they want to have kids someday, they need the help of a third party. Mm-hmm. Or they have friends and family who've been through fertility struggles and know that like, or just believe that anyone who wants to be a parent deserves to be a parent.
Totally.
Right? And so they're really open-minded. And so like I, at this point, am out of the window. I'd be too old to donate. And so it's not about me or what I think or what millennials before me and Gen X before me thought. And those are the people who have the loudest opinions on the internet, right? It's what does the woman between the ages of 21 and 34 think?
Right.
And they're like super into this idea that they can help someone else grow their family and do something for themselves at the same time.
It's phenomenal.
And so I see our role as like, how do we educate them on what it means to freeze their eggs? How do we help them understand their own family building goals and how many eggs they should put away or how many cycles might make sense? And the fact that like no egg freezing journey is a guarantee. It should not be positioned as an insurance policy.
Correct.
I hate that.
Yeah.
It's like a personal pet peeve of mine. It is not an insurance policy. But people who freeze their eggs are more likely to have a child later in life than those who don't. And so...
And the younger you do it, this is the piece that people need to understand is the younger you do it, the more likely it is to be successful. Yeah. And also the more efficient each cycle will be.
Yes.
Because you just don't need as many eggs.
Yes. Also, I, being like a data nerd, really love this like, if you do a cycle, we can learn from that cycle and it's likely to be optimized the next time. And you might even have a better outcome if you do them close together, right? Yeah. Not crazy close, but like reasonably close,
within,
right?
Yeah, even a few months makes a big difference.
Like you can learn from it and optimize it.
Absolutely.
How cool is that?
Absolutely. You get to learn a lot more about your fertility as well as you're going through a stimulation cycle. And then also, if half of them are being donated, you get insight on how well they do. Fertilized.
So we talk about this all the time. Yes.
It's amazing. Yes. You actually get insight on your own fertility.
You get more insight on your egg quality than anyone else who's freezing their eggs because they're just putting them away. It's really cool.
Correct. The piece that a lot of women don't realize, especially those who are getting their AMH drawn on a regular basis, they're equating that to their fertility. No. But the reality, your AMH, which is your ovarian reserve marker through a blood test, only tells us the quantity of eggs you have. It tells us nothing about quality, nothing about your ability to conceive. And the only way to know is if you A, try to get pregnant, or B, indirectly through creation of embryos in the lab. Yeah. And so if for whatever reason the eggs don't really fertilize well and don't do well, that's really amazing information because then it could either be a fluke cycle and you try it again. Yeah. Or it could be, there's something going on. Yeah. That we never anticipated. Yeah. Now, if somebody did have suboptimal fertilization and blastulation, which is the development of embryos, are they allowed to redo another cycle?
It depends. It depends, right? So like if we know there's a sperm quality issue with the sperm source, right? Mm-hmm. Then that's potentially the problem.
Totally.
Or it depends. It's always an it depends, right?
Right.
But sometimes, yes. Sometimes we may say, hey, there's an inequality thing here. Let's get you in with one of the REIs to talk about it. Maybe a keep cycle makes sense. It really just depends.
Yeah.
The other thing that I learned that I've been like so hot on is secondary infertility.
Yes.
I am like, I want to shout about it from the rooftops So first of all, I had secondary infertility, right? This idea that you have one child, get pregnant, stay pregnant, no problem. That a subsequent pregnancy is harder to either get or stay pregnant, right? And that's my like non-scientific definition. Hopefully you don't disagree with it.
Yeah, no,
right?
That's
like,
pretty much the gist of it. Secondary infertility is the inability to conceive after X amount of time of unprotected sex when you were able to conceive the first time without assistance.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So that's what I experienced trying to have a second, and have seen so many of our intended parents come to us with that story of, we had our first, it's now been 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. We've tried IVF. Now we need an egg donor. And I just like think that people have this like false sense of security from having an unassisted first child.
Totally.
That like, I don't know. It's like almost like, oh, I had this child, so I won't be someone who struggles with fertility challenges. Yeah. And I purposely don't say infertility because I hate that word because it feels so like finite to me.
Yeah. I know a lot of people use subfertility, but I hear your point.
Yeah. It just like, I don't know, like challenges with fertility. And then you can overcome them with all of these other different ways of getting there. Whatever.
Yeah.
I really think so much, and we talk about this a lot with our members on the egg freezing side and even with my team, right? Like, what are your goals, right? Are you someone who isn't planning to have kids until, you know, you finish your training and your fellowship and whatever until you're like 36, and then your goal is to have 2 to 3 children? If that's the case, you might want to consider either freezing eggs or freezing embryos, right? But if you're somebody who like wants to get pregnant with 1 or 2 kids at 29, like maybe not, right?
Totally.
And I just like think that people aren't doing the math of how long it might take you to have your first, and then that you're going to be postpartum for however long, and then you may or may not want to take a little break in between. And then like when you try for that second or that third, it takes longer, it's harder. And like, why not just like have a little backup plan?
Absolutely. You know? And what's really interesting is some patients that I'll talk to, they'll tell me, well, I really wish the last fertility doctor told me that. And I think that there's always this sort of fear for some physicians of coming across too aggressive. Like nobody wants to be that doctor that was like, yeah, you have to do several cycles of egg freezing or IVF or whatever it is. Or, oh, you got pregnant on your own. Well, you should come see me for egg freezing, because you don't want to sound salesy, for lack of better words. But in the same time, like we know that even on average, in order to give yourself a 95% chance at one child, if you are 35 and under, you need an average of 15 to 20 eggs frozen. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And that's just, it shows you the inefficiency of human reproduction. Now, not everyone's going to need that many, but that's usually what I quote. And like, since we don't know what these eggs are capable of and we're freezing them until later, the safe place to be is 15 to 20 eggs per desired child.
Yeah.
So if that's 3 kids, we're probably going to have to do this many, many times.
Right. And you're only getting older, right?
Correct.
So if you wait until after that first child, then the number of eggs you need is higher than what you just quoted, right?
Absolutely.
So secondary infertility is my
that was your situation.
My cause.
Yeah. No, it's great.
And it's like a unique, I think too, it's harder in different ways than struggling to have your first. Not harder period, but just different, right? Like, you know, I went through my daughter incessantly asking for a sibling. Incessantly.
Wow.
Like just was really hard.
How old was she?
She was like she was like in her 2s.
Oh, wow. She understood. Wow.
Oh, yeah. She started calling other people's siblings her baby sister. It was the time.
That's tough, especially when you can't really explain why things haven't been happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think secondary infertility is a little bit tricky because especially in our community, when you have primary infertility, you're sort of part of this community. You all want to have a child. You're in this together. It's a really crappy club to be in. But, you know, that saying, like, the worst club, the best members. But when you have secondary infertility, you almost come across as this person who's like, you know, quote, not grateful for their child. You should be grateful
for the first. Yeah,
but
totally.
It doesn't work that way. I mean, you're entitled to having as many kids as you hope to have. And if it's not happening, it's almost like a weird place to be mentally, where you're like, wait, I thought this was working.
Yeah.
What is happening? And it really sets you up for a lot of disappointment.
Totally.
But I think in any case, any form of infertility is disappointing.
It really is. Yeah.
Well, Lauren, thank you so much for coming and talking about this. I really wanted to have you here so that a lot of people could know about cofertility. If anyone is looking to freeze their eggs and would love to help another couple, this is the perfect situation. And, you know, to provide not only options for yourself, but for others as well to build their families.
Or if you're an intended parent and you are hoping to find a match, right? Like looking for an egg donor, or just like thinking about potentially going down that route. Like we have so much information and education on the subject. Like neither side should feel alone in this. So
absolutely.
We got you.
I love it.
Yeah, this was fun.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.